Derek's a former Memorial, so his hockey career is a former Memorial Cup winner with the Windsor Spitfires. And back in those days, there in the 08, 09, 9-10 season, there was guys like Zach Cassian, Taylor Hall, Ryan Ellis, Adam Henrique, and there's so many guys on that team. It was fantastic. So Derek had his role on that team. But the great thing about it is he was a leader on that team, even though he wasn't Taylor Hall. I was watching a lot of these guys come up to him with just life questions. So that tells you the type of leader he is. And to top it off, he was the back-to-back Scholastic Player of the Year of the OHL, which is incredible. So Roger Neilson Award. So you can look that up. So my question, Derek, first of all, I want to say welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Andy.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and I'm so glad. So how this came to fruition, how Derek ended up on here, is he just graduated from medical school and he became a doctor, and because we care about each other, there was a text sent, congratulations, and then he was saying, Andy, I heard you're doing some stuff, and then I would love to be on your webinar. And I'm like, my God, fantastic. And this is a dream, Derek. Like, so as I'm talking as a dad, as a parent, and just going through life, a hockey coach, every parent watching, every kid watching, this is a comment that's always said, if I don't play, if my kid doesn't play in the NHL, I just want him to get his education. And so you're like the prime example or the best example of a hockey player. This is a dream come true, getting your hockey paid for, not only just getting your hockey paid for, but become a medical doctor. So congratulations on that, but I've seen you put the hard work in. There had to be some challenges, and I want to know a few. So can you tell me a couple of challenges along the way? Because I'm telling you, or as a hockey player, OHL, there's a few distractions. How'd you get through it, brother?
Yeah, so well, thanks a lot for the introduction. I mean, it's far too kind with a lot of things. I mean, anywhere you get is with a lot of help, and obviously going through the process of hockey and school, you have setbacks, you have distractions, you have challenges, and really having your network to kind of fall back on has been really helpful. Like trying out for, when I was 16, trying out for a junior C hockey team and getting cut. And then you think, well, geez, like I'm not making a junior C hockey team. How am I going to kind of move on from there and regroup? So you focus from there, you build, and then the next year you go to junior B, and then you get a tryout, and then you go to the OHL, and then you keep building, right? It's just not taking no for an answer and not letting others define how good you are or how good where you belong. It's just to keep working. And the same thing goes for school. Like I had my undergraduate degree, and then I finished that off. I thought I wanted to go to medical school. I applied, was denied across the board. Does that mean you're not good enough? I mean, I didn't believe so. I thought that maybe there was something missing. Maybe there was a weakness in my application. So you kind of seek help. You go to resources. You talk to physicians. You talk to mentors, people that are in the program. You look at me, look at what I've done, look at where I am. Where am I missing, right? So in that particular instance, I had not done enough of evidence towards showing that I wanted to be a doctor, right? So, and did I even want to be a doctor? So it forced me to reflect on myself and my career path and where I was going. And then I put the work in. I got better grades. I got, more activities that showed commitment, that showed desire, that showed dedication. And then the next year you're accepted, and then you excel all the way through medical school, right? So, hockey and academics and your career choices, they overlie so much in the fact that like you have these great successes and you have these opportunities that come up, but you have a lot of setbacks, and you just can't let one setback hold you from living up to your potential. And you're the only person that knows how far you can go, and you just have to try and see where that'll take you. So I mean, obviously there's been a ton of little setbacks in between, but those are kind of two of the bigger ones that I reflect back on, and I say, that could have defined me as a person, right? I could have been cut as a 16-year-old from junior C and said, well, maybe I'm not good enough, and that's it, and just hang up my skates and try and do something else. But I didn't think that was right. I didn't think that that's who I was. I thought that I had more to offer, and I thought that maybe I didn't put in the work that I should have going into that camp. Just like when I applied to medical school the first time, I felt like, maybe I wasn't as focused as I could have been. Maybe I didn't do what I needed to do. And coming to medical school and meeting all my colleagues, I realized that was absolutely true. You know, there's a lot of them that had done nothing but school their whole lives. And I'm not saying that that's the right way. And I really believe that there's a place for people that are well-rounded and they feel like they excel more than others. But when you're competing for a spot with someone that's done nothing but that, they've really showed their dedication. It's hard to kind of make your argument unless you put some effort in yourself as well.
So would you say that hockey, the habits of hockey, people talk is cheap, right? A lot of people say, you know, I talk to a lot of people and they say, you know, hockey prepared me for later in life. And my question a lot of times is, it didn't really, because I watch a lot of the guys and, you know, if it really prepared you, then, you know, you would take those lessons of hard work, getting up early, and doing all those little habits. Would you say that that helped you with getting into medical school?
So absolutely, you know, like, but there's a caveat to it, right? Most people that are playing hockey, especially people that are attending your camps and whatnot, they really like it. You know, they love it. You know, this is their passion. This is their sport. This is a great thing. So it's a little easier to kind of get up early and work hard and do the things you're doing when you're doing something you love. And for me, I wanted to do medicine, and I felt that was the place that I was going to be. But along the way, you're forced to take courses that maybe you don't like. But does that mean that you can mail in and not put the work into those courses? No, because it all counts towards the process, right? It's all part of the game. Like there's rotations in medicine that I didn't particularly like. There's exams and whole semesters that I didn't particularly like. But you have skills that developed and habits that you've learned through doing something you love, like hockey, that you have to build on that, and you have to continue to build on that. The one thing that I find hockey was really good at was that teamwork bit. And, you know, being a part of a team, like you said, is so important, because there's teams in all aspects of life. You know, whether you're working in a hospital or working at the camps with you, or working at a bank or anything, right? Like, you're going to have to work in teams. You're going to have to work with others. You're going to have to learn how to get along and how to sacrifice a little bit of yourself for the team, and how to kind of make that all come together. So hockey's really been good for that side of things. And I find that that's where some of the people that were straight line and didn't do anything else, any sports, are kind of lacking as you proceed.
Right. I got a question for you, because there's going to be some people out here. It's kind of a double question. Someone watching this can be a critic right away. Say, okay, Derek, you did it. You won Scholastic Player of the Year twice. You're a medical doctor. You're gifted. Okay, so that's one thing. And the other side would be, okay, I don't want to be a medical doctor. I want to be a plumber. I'm not making fun of plumbers. It's just it's not the same level of education. What can you answer that? Were you just gifted, or what went along the way? And I'm saying that because we talked the other night about we're talking about a book that we both shared with each other. It's called The Brain That Changes Itself. It's called The Stick-to-itiveness. And I would say that, like, to play in the NHL, there is a level of talent that you have to have. But the other side of it, there is a willingness to never give up. So do you remember my question now?
Yeah. So I mean, it's so true in a lot of ways. I mean, exactly like you said, like, I don't think that you could take any person and make them into an NHL player.
Right.
But you can make somebody who's borderline an NHL player. You could make someone who is a good player, a great player. Like, everyone has a certain element of kind of peak potential, but what that is, you'll never really know until you try, right? Until you push yourself to your absolute limit. You don't know what yours is, because everyone develops at different stages. I mean, when I was first going through school, you know, in elementary school, I remember I was looking through, cleaning my room out this summer, kind of getting ready for a move, and looking through report cards and doing, you know, you kind of assume that you did well all the way through, but it wasn't the case. And talking with my mom about things, she said, you had zero patience. You know, I had no patience to do dictées, which is like kind of like spelling tests and doing grammar things. And like, everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And, when someone's interested in hockey at a pretty high pace, you like to go, you like to do things. And I just had no patience for a lot of the schoolwork. And I found that it reflected in my marks, and I didn't do that well for a long time. And then something clicked, and that something was more the fact that, this is important. Why is it important? Someone was actually able to answer the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to build, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you start doing better in school, it's easier to get better at school, and that's that whole point about the brain that changes itself, is the fact that, like, the brain is not a fixed organ, right? It's always changing. And if you're putting in work, and, one of the things that I really liked, that I found really elevated my schoolwork, is learning how to learn, right? What works best for you? How do you memorize things? You don't just read a list and say, okay, now stick in my brain. Just stay there.
Right.
There's techniques, right? There's things you can do. There's, mnemonics. There's all kinds of like learning techniques that you can pick up along the way that will help you and help you succeed. So like, just to kind of summarize a little bit, is the fact that, everybody has a certain level of potential, and that potential is variable, and you'll never know what it is until you try, right? And until you try and improve yourself. And it's like compound interest, where if you put in the work early, you'll get a little bit of a base, and then you'll put it in again, and then you'll build again, and then it just keeps going up and up and up. And I'm sure that there's a peak somewhere, but you don't know where it is. So you just keep pushing it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's kind of the sum of that one, is that, I didn't always do well. I had no patience. I didn't stick with it. And like you said, I'm a person as well that's frustrated by someone just telling me, oh, you have to do it. You have to learn it. Why? Like, doesn't make any sense to me. But then when someone, good teachers along the way matter a lot. My parents, my brother, like, role models that can go through and explain to you, show you the way. I remember distinctly my brother going into high school and doing really well, and being like, well, I think I want to do that. Like, I'd like to do well. Like, you get a lot of benefit to being able to hold a conversation with adults. That was something that bothered me when I was younger, is maybe I didn't have enough knowledge to be able to hold a good conversation. And I seen everyone talking in a corner, and then, well, how do I do that? Well, you should read a little bit. Maybe you should learn how to write. Maybe you should learn grammar and whatnot. And then that gives me a reason, right? So something that I saw no value to then became to have value. So whatever way you have to do it in your own self, you build on it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm gonna ask you a question. Maybe you can add to this, because I think I'm going to speak from my experience first. When I was a kid, because you said something that you're a why guy. You need to know why before you do things, kind of, right? And I'm the exact same way. That. That's why when I'm teaching kids hockey, I don't just say, okay, do this. I always say, do this because you got to know why, because then they're going to have a reason to perform. So when I was going to school, and I'm not in any way bragging about this at all, I went to school and I disliked it so much, because learning why, or learning geography or this English thing or whatever, I just needed to know why. And when I would ask, I would get the answer, because you need to know. And it wasn't an answer that I liked. And I think most people are the same way. And I think parents getting the message out to their kids, a lot of times you just say, you just need to do it. So here was the best answer I ever had. And I want you to expand on. So I was working with an agent. His name is Ian Pulver. He's Bob Goodenow. He was an NHLPA's second in line. So he wrote the new Central or CBA. Brilliant guy. And I was doing some work for him with some of his players. And what he does, he sits down with every player that he has, and he explains to them about the pressures of life. And this is brilliant. So he said, your pressures of life as a young person, this is why school is so important. The pressures of life that you have are, number one, you got to be a good kid, right? You got to be a decent kid. You have some manners and do that. Second thing is you want to be a hockey player. That's a pressure. You want to perform and do well. You got to practice. Third thing is school. You have to go to school to get through. He goes, it's not about the geography at this point. It's about just doing it and doing it well. He goes, because those are your three major pressures of life. If you happen to play at a higher level, the Ontario Hockey League, where you know yourself the distractions, the NHL, where there's more distractions, money, interviews, people watching you, a wife, a kid, all these things. Now your distractions become big. So if you can't handle those three small things when you're 14, 15, 17, whatever, if you make it to the NHL or you go to a higher level of school or something like that, it's basically you turn into a disaster because you can't manage it. So what do you think of that? That was a pretty good comment that he made.
So it's so valid, and it applies to so many aspects of school. I mean, it's easy for someone to say, "Oh, I don't like school. You know, I don't like school. It's not for me. Whatever." How amazing is it that we live in a society that you can dedicate X amount of hours of your day to learning and making yourself better, so you can operate within society at a higher level. You know, and that's really how I saw it. You know, exactly like you said, there's a lot of distractions. Life gets complicated, and it gets complicated very quickly. But each stage of your life, there's things that you can be learning and mastering so that you don't have to go back and learn it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're going through and learning to read, you know, if you never really learn how to read, everything becomes harder afterwards, because now you're having to read to do X, Y, Z, and you don't know how. So, boy, that's tough. If you didn't learn geography, you know, you all of a sudden become successful out of some miracle, and you want to travel, and you have no idea where to go or what's in which place or what's going where. You know, you can justify why everything's important down the road, because you'll use all these skills, and everything comes back, right? You know, you build these skills, you develop them, and then who knows when you're going to call on it, right? Who knows when you're going to have to call on it? But like you said, things get complicated, and if you didn't learn it when it wasn't complicated, how on earth do you think that you're going to learn it when things become complicated?
Yeah,
So,
with the
so
pressure.
I think that that's exactly correct. Is that, like, you know, it's not to say that school is easy, because, you know, everyone has their own difficulties and everyone learns at different levels and paces, and things might not be explained to you in a way that is best for you. But it's up to you to take that responsibility and take ownership of what you're learning, and make the best of it, so that you're ready, right? You're ready for down the road when things get tough and when things get weird, and you have a lot of things going on that you said, geez, wow, I'm glad I really got mastery of this subject when it was easy, because now when it's hard, I don't have to think about it. I just do it. I'm on autopilot. So I think I think it's a great statement. I think it makes a big picture argument to why it's important to learn and to focus on these things.
Yeah. Now, in your case, see, I always tell my son and the kids that I train, and I did some leadership stuff, and this really hit home. I'm assuming this was your life. When I was growing up, I had the only way I could keep myself between the lines, because I didn't have a whole lot of guidance anywhere, but I knew I wanted to play in the NHL. That's the one thing I wanted, and I knew by doing that, that, you know, when it came to smoking something and doing things that were outside of an athlete's, you know, habits, it was easy for me to say no, because I knew that, like, if it was someone gave me a cigarette or weed, I could just easily say that's for rock stars, not hockey players. That's what I always said to myself. So it kept things, kept me in between the lines, like, real good. And it was not the same for you, because the playing in the Ontario Hockey League, that's a big commitment itself. Going to school and doing well is a big commitment itself. So you would have had people asking you, you know, going out with the boys, which you probably did. Obviously you did, going out with the guys. But how did you focus on, because here's the thing, I got a kid. This is the thing. I've got students, but I have my own son. And I can just really relate outside of being a coach. The fear of missing out on things, you know, not understanding the end of the line. So, you know, you understand the sacrifice now to get what you want later. Can you explain, because you must have went through like a ton of that?
Oh yeah. So it happens, and it happens all the time, right? And the key thing to keep in mind is the big picture, right? What are you striving for, right? What do you want to be? Do you want to be that guy that did that one party, or do you want to be the guy that was XYZ, whatever you want to be, right? And there's a time and a place for everything. And I'm not saying that I was a saint and I didn't go out with the boys and have fun like that, right? Like there's lots of those times that you need to, right? You can't be all work all the time. I mean, some people might be able to, but that wasn't me. Um, and it's just, I found that it was really about picking your moments, you know? If the next exam is in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, well, if you want to go out on a Saturday night or do whatever, like that's fine. But the weekend before, the couple days before the exam, maybe that's one you mail in and you say, you know what, maybe I won't go this one. I'll make it up next time, right? Because I know that there will be a next time, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to a tryout or when it comes to an exam or when it comes to some of these things, there's not always a redo, right? You're going through it one time. So a small sacrifice at the right time makes all the difference. And then you can do whatever you want afterwards, right? You have all the time in the world and you just have to, and I found that was a lesson that took a while to learn, is that about picking your moments, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was, I had a 2-week window before exams where I would really focus on things. And I tell my friends, you know, listen, I'll come for, you know, to watch a movie or something, or come to hang out or do whatever we're going to do, but I'm not going to stay all night. You know, like I got things, I got a plan, I got a schedule. I'm going to go follow my things through. And those little sacrifices really add up, right? Because it also keeps you committed, right? Mm-hmm. I made the sacrifice by not going to see my friends, so I'm going to work hard because I know that I've indicated that it's worth it for me. So I think timing your fun and timing your events is really important, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a self-image thing that goes with that too, because our hockey culture is a whole different world than a lot of places. And, you know, being one of the boys is one of the best things in the world, walking in the room and having 17 friends and stuff like that. And so how did you deal with it? Because I want, you know, I'm picturing my son right now. He's getting at an age where he's playing, you know, he's a good hockey player. He's competitive. And now there's the distractions, right? And I see it with all the other kids as well. There's girls, there's all the stuff. There's vaping is the cool thing now. Like and you're invited to parties and stuff, the dances, and some of them are just little things, but there's so many things going on. What were tools that you used when the coolest guy on the team, let's say Zach Cassian or Taylor Hall, the superstars of the team, where everybody wants to be around, says, Kate, we're going out, we're doing this tonight. And then you say, I got an exam tomorrow, I got whatever. And they say, yeah, well, just shut up. You're coming out with us. Like, how did you deal with that? What tools did you give a kid?
Yeah. So I think having a positive image of yourself and how you identify yourself, you know, I see it a lot in medicine, and some people have very terrible images of themselves, right? They have very low confidence. I'm not a good person. And they'll repeat that to themselves. I'm not a good person. I'm a person that quits. I'm a person that does this. I'm a person that does that. But if you see yourself as a person that, you know, finishes what they started, that, you know, commits to things that they commit to, right? And works hard on projects. If you have that vision of yourself as a person, then I find that it's easier to say no and say, you know what, and it's not rubbing it in their face, right? Like, it's not saying like, oh, we're going to go party, and say, no, I'm better than you guys. I'm not going to do that. Like I have this different image, and it's definitely not about that. It's about saying, you know what, I maybe didn't study as good as I want to, or maybe I didn't do this as much as I wanted to. I'm going to make it up to you guys next time. You know, so with the guys, you'd be like, oh, I'll be there next time. I'll be the first one there. Right.
Yeah.
And you know that, like, when you're done your exam, you're going to have a period where you're going to have time. Because there's no education, no job, no anything has no free time, right? You're going to have time if you choose to take it, and you schedule it in. You say, you know, sorry boys, I can't do it. And from your perspective, it's because you've identified yourself as a person that follows through with their commitments, and that, you know, knows how to time prioritize and knows how to do these things. But from their perspective, you're a guy that, you know, they might tell you you're a nerd, right? And they might say, oh, loser, like whatever, like, and I got it all, right? Like I remember, like, guys would be playing video games 8 hours a day, and I would be having to go home and study and kind of keep my things together. And it was tough, right? It was. And I'm not going to say that, like, the distractions aren't there. And I think we can all relate to that. There's that I think it was the Hockey Hall of Fame. Have you seen the ad where they talk about Marcy Boom Boom McLean?
I don't know. I watched
Have you
it.
seen
I don't know. Tell me about it.
Well, it just talks about how most hockey dreams die. Come see the ones that didn't. And it's an ad for the
Oh
Hockey Hall
wow,
of
yeah, that's awesome.
Fame. So there's like it's so common. It's been around forever that, you know, there's distraction. There's all kinds of things, and it's not to say that you should commit your whole life to only hockey or only school or only thing, but it's good to have balance, right? Because there was a lot of times that school wasn't going well for me and I had hockey. I say, you know what, it's okay. I'm doing well in the hockey. Or, you know, you're getting sat at hockey, you're not playing. And you're like, shit, like, well, what am I going to do? So then I'm glad I got the school thing, right? So having different avenues is nice because it gives you that multi-dimensional aspect that you can focus on. You can shift your focus if things aren't going well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we had. You know, it's funny when maybe things are a little bit different, but I'm looking in the OHL. Okay, so it's a breeding ground, and there's I don't know how to say this necessarily, but the guys that are going to make it, that are really talented, they're the cool guys, right? They're the cool guys, and not going to school. And even when I played, not going to school was actually kind of cool, you know, because you didn't care. You know, you're a Joe hockey player. You know, that's how dumb we were, right?
Yeah.
It's not cool, and I see that even with, you know, because here's I guess the theory is that, you know, when people are succeeding, what do people want to do? They want to drag them down, and they find reasons why, you know, they're lucky and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes being smart isn't cool. And Eric Palazzolo, you know Eric, he works with me, and he's a real brilliant guy. He's like you. He's doing engineering though, but it's like he's focused. He schedules things in. It's like it's so impressive to see a young man doing that, and it's like he's going to be. He already is, and it's so far ahead. But he's in the gym working out with me at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's jacked. He's got his stuff together, and we always have this conversation that smart actually is pretty cool. It's pretty cool because you can have conversations with a lot of people, and it opens up a lot of options. So so anyways, I just had a comment there. I don't know if I was asking a question or not, but what there was a question from someone here. What edge did hockey give you over the other people when you shifted your focus to academics? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's a lot of edges, and like I mentioned earlier, the teamwork one is a big one, and I find that, you know, I'm in the hospital setting, and you're working with a lot of allied healthcare. You're working with nurses. You're working physician assistants and secretaries, and, you know, pharmacists. Like there's a whole gamut of people that you're working with alongside of other doctors and specialists and stuff like this, and you have to kind of know how you fit into that mix, right? Hockey was really good at offering that, and knowing where your role is and what you can do to help the team, right? Like I said, I'm a first year resident right now, so I'm almost as low as you can get in the hospital setting, and I know that, and I'm fine with that. Versus some of the other, because I've been a rookie, and, you know, 4 different times I've been the rookie on the team. And, like, you know, I'd come from the OHL to university hockey, and I'm the rookie again, right? And it's humbling, but it's true. And knowing how you fit into these teams and what your role is, it really allows you to thrive within them. The other big thing that I think of is failure. Nobody wins every hockey game, right? I've never met anyone that's played hockey that's won every game they've ever played. So you're always losing once in a while. You're always getting cut sometimes, and it's pretty impressive. Some of my friends and some of my colleagues in my class have been the best at everything all the way through. They've never gotten cut. They've never failed an exam. They've never done anything. They've never anything like this. But then, as you progress in life, if you're doing well, you're going to get to a point where you're not the best anymore. It's natural. Even the best doctor at the Ottawa hospital is oftentimes not the best doctor in the world. And even the best doctor in the world, it's probably not the best doctor in the world at everything, right? So there's going to be a point where you're not the best one anymore. And being able to handle that is something that's pretty unique, and being able to use that as a positive and not a negative. Because I've seen people, you know, get their first medical school exam back, and all of a sudden they're in the bottom 25% of the class. And they've been the best all the way through. And they're pouting and they're crying and they're questioning everything and rethinking their whole life. And other people can say, you know what? Wow, this is a great group of people. Everyone's really smart, but I think I got more, right? I think I can push harder.
Yep.
And I feel hockey's really been good for teaching me that there's always more. There's another gear. There's something more you can do. You can go home and shoot more pucks. You can go home and study more. You can go home and work on your skills. Like there's all these things that you can do work and get better, and you're not fixed, right? So being able to handle failure in stride is something that hockey's been really good at as well. So I think the two biggest things that I had a big edge at was number one, being able to work really well on teams, and number two, being able to know how to handle failure and handle like, losses and things like this, because it happens in all aspects of life. Whatever profession you do, you're going to have little things that go wrong.
Yeah.
And if you can handle that in stride and not get flustered and just move on with it, you have a huge edge over a majority of people.
Oh, absolutely. There's, I was just thinking about my business, to be honest with you, like as you're going through that stuff, I'll tell you, this was, remember my old gym, my old gym, it was off Tecumseh Road.
Tecumseh Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember one day there was a couple kids in there and they said, "Hey, you're a really successful guy, right?" And I went, "Oh my God." I said, it might appear like that. Like, and I was doing successful things at the time and I was becoming somewhat successful. But I told them it was a few years ago that my life got so bad that I was delivering pizzas just to make ends meet in a piece of shit car. And they're like, "Really?" And I told them a bunch of my stories. And the thing was, because I didn't take the time as a kid to hone in on school. So I had to learn it the hard way. So this is the school of hard knocks for real. Yeah. And and that was like, those were really tough lessons. And the thing was that I tell everybody is I had to learn, I had to read. But the beautiful thing is there was a point when I was in my early 20s where I said, because I didn't have formal education, but I immersed myself in the books I read, like a lot of the books, to make me a better person. But one of the things I really dialed into was, and not because I was done with hockey, I was done. I wanted to throw that away. I wanted to do something else. So I was done with hockey, but I started really focusing on learning about nutrition and fitness. And I studied this stuff. And the next thing you know, and I did a little bit of martial arts where I learned stuff, and all this kind of stuff applies to my hockey training. So education is huge, and sometimes you don't know where it's going to come from. So I look back and I look at the health classes or whatever, geography, whatever it was, and back then I was like, how's that going to help? And all I could think about was hockey, right? And then all of a sudden, my business is fairly successful because I did take the time to educate myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it froze a little bit, but it kind of fast forwarded through. I was able to hear you, hopefully.
Okay.
But it's such an important lesson. People see the end product and they think that, the path is a straight line, but it's so cliche, but it's not, right? Like you go through these valleys and you hit low points and you go one way or another, right? It's a lot of crossroads. And once you're at a low point, you can either keep at that level and say, this is my level, this is where I belong. Or you can have that identity, right? You have this vision of yourself and who you are as a person. What are your values? What kind of things you're going to accomplish? And then you pick yourself back up and you put in the work and you move on, right?
So, absolutely. What's the best memories you had in hockey back in the Memorial Cup? Who'd you have on that team that year?
So on the team that year was a whole host of guys. I mean, there's the big names like Taylor Hall and Cassian and Henrique and Ellis and Fowler and Grubauer and Tom Kuhnackel. And, there were so many of these guys that went on to play in the NHL that, it was so impressive and that was something that I also reflect back on as you see these guys that are going to the NHL and as much as they had that vision of themselves, right? And maybe if I could go back in time, maybe I would have rethunk how I approach the hockey side of things. And maybe I didn't have a high enough vision of myself with hockey, right? Because it's easy to say, oh, I focused on school, I did that, but maybe I didn't put the effort in that I'm preaching to and that I'm saying that I did in school in hockey, right? Like these guys unquestionably worked harder than I did in the gym, skating, doing extra stuff, like off the ice, like doing this stuff, right? And I could make excuses all I want as to why that was the case. And I had this going on, I had that going on. And, but it's impressive that they were able to do that, because they said, I'm an NHL player. I'm going to be an NHL player. And here's what I have to do. Right.
Yeah. I've got a panelist, actually, Dr. John, you know him. He said, what was your greatest failure and how did you use it to better yourself? And conversely, what was your greatest success and how did it help you take it to another level of success? Do you need me to say it again?
Yeah. No, I hear it. So, I mean, the greatest failure bit is a bit difficult. I mean, I think when I applied to medical school and didn't get in, that was something that stung a lot, because I thought that I worked really, really hard and I thought that I had a good application and I thought my grades were good. And it was a real setback. And I really kind of reflected upon myself and said, okay, what do I do now? Right? Like, where am I at? I ended up doing a master's that year in economics. And
tell the people about that paper. That was awesome.
So the paper I wrote during the year was, I used econometric models, which is basically math, to find equations based on previous contracts signed in the NHL to find out which markers had value for someone going through contract negotiations. So goals per 60 minutes or assists per 60 minutes or fights or whatever. And we found some pretty unique stuff that it had never been shown before, that fighting actually got you an increase in your salary in the NHL, but it wasn't infinite and it wasn't linear either. If you had more than 4 fights a year, you kind of had this fighter tag to yourself and you got a bonus of 18%. If you had 2 fights or 1 fight, there was no signal that gave you any bonus. If you had 4 fights versus 15 fights, there was no difference either. So that was the big original piece of the work. But it was great. I learned a ton about business and things like that. And I was able to use that when I got to medical school, creating an economic curriculum for doctors. So we then, this year that I basically had because I got cut because I didn't make it, I was able to turn that into the first ever across Canada economic financial curriculum for doctors. And we were able to put together 25 doctors in Ottawa, have them give 12 lectures over the years. And the amount of networking and connections I made through that project and respect I was earned from my peers was just, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And being able to bring that to fruition would have never been possible if I didn't have that master's behind my name and had that experience of putting a project together. So that was, and it was such a funny thing, because I remember like it was yesterday, I had been rejected from medical school and I had my undergraduate graduation. And I walked across the stage and I seen one of my economics professors and he said, wow, it's so nice of you to graduate. Like, you must be doing great things. What are you up to? And I had no answer. I had no plan. I had nothing, right? It was a huge low point. I said, you know what, to be honest with you, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I just got rejected from medical school. That was my plan moving forward. And now I'm kind of stuck. And he said, well, geez, why don't you come work with me? And we'll do something together. I'll give you free rein to do a project. And that's because I had done well in his classes of economics throughout my undergrad. And those were not classes that I necessarily needed, right? If I was going to be a doctor, you don't necessarily need economics. So I could have easily mailed it in and sat in the corner and not really cared and said, oh, this doesn't matter to me. But I showed him that I'm a hard worker, and I showed him that I mean business. And that connection got me into do my master's and then got me into do this other stuff. So it all kind of spiraled from just being a decent person and working hard in whatever you're doing. So I didn't anticipate that, but that was from there. And my greatest success, I mean, I would say there's the host of, I don't know. I don't really know. I haven't really thought of, I mean, it might even be, like launching this curriculum would be something that I think was really something that I'm extremely proud of, because
Yeah.
I was able to coordinate with these, 25 doctors across Ottawa that are extremely busy, and host an event to kind of put together and then apply for approval, apply for funding, get everything going, and then coordinate it to run for a year, and then writing papers around it. So I mean, it's something that I'm extremely proud of, that was able to happen, and none of it would have happened if I would have got in the first time, right? If the road was easy, I wouldn't have all come together like that. So it just it show that you go one way or the other if you get a failure.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I always say to the kids, or to everybody, really. Like I said at the last webinar that I had, I said it's every time I've had a failure, every single time. You feel terrible, but it's still what makes you, right? It's what makes you, whether it's in hockey, in life, in business, whatever it is. You go down, when you decide to stick to it, like you said earlier, sticking through the tough stuff.
Yeah.
The other side's always so much better. So, but we can't accept, we can't see it when it's happening, right? No. But but you had your brain open, that you talked to that professor, and because you're open-minded and stuff, and you told him honestly, he invited you, and you made something great happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you keep an open mind and are nice to people, they're going to share their wisdom with you, right? There's a lot of people that know a lot more than you about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if you just let them tell you, they'll give you the way, right?
Yeah. There's a question that we talked about the other day. Why did you choose the OHL as opposed to the NCAA?
Yeah.
And I'm going to remind you of someone that well. I'm not going to say his name here. You'll laugh, and you won't be able to stop laughing. But he was one of our friends, and he worked for me for a while. And he was contemplating being a pro hockey player, going to the NCAA. So one of the questions I asked him back in the day is like, how are your marks? Because he wanted to play in the NCAA, like get a scholarship. He goes, well, they're not that good. Like, how the heck are you? So this is even for the kids here, right? Talk's cheap, right? We could say that we want to practice hard to be a pro hockey player. We could say we want to be get a scholarship, but we have to have reality. But so one of the things you're going to have to do if you actually are considering getting a scholarship is your marks have to be up. Number two, so to answer your question, what made you make the decision? I think you know what I was talking about, eh?
Yeah. I know exactly. But so in the modern age of scholarships, it's tougher and tougher, right? Like to get a full ride athletic scholarship is extremely difficult. Yeah. However, if you have good grades and you can get a bit of money from your academics, and they can give you a half ride for athletics, the team's more likely to take you, and you get a full ride scholarship still. So it's a win-win for everybody. So having that as an option is extremely valuable. For me personally, when I was making that decision, I had Reichs was the GM of the Spits, and he's, we won the Memorial Cup. We're going to win it again. There's going to be 20 scouts, NHL scouts at every single game, and we'll pay for your school. So if you want to be a hockey player at all, try and be a hockey player. And if it doesn't work, go do your school. And I kind of thought of that, and I said, you can go to the NCAA and you can do your school and play hockey at the same time. And that's great. It's a good option. There's lots of great schools you can go to, and everything is phenomenal. But you kind of sacrifice a little bit of both, right? When you're doing both full, right? You can't really give it your all, And I said, well, if I want to even think about making to the NHL, I want to give it my all. Yeah. And if I want to give it my all in hockey, the school thing is going to be difficult, right? It's going to be difficult to give it your all in hockey and your all in school and do the best at both. So I said, why don't I give it a couple years and try and make the NHL? And if it doesn't work, I have my school package. I can then go and play hockey still, university hockey, which is great hockey, but it's a lot less commitment than NCAA hockey. It's a lot less commitment than the OHL. And you can really focus on your school and be as successful as you can in that route. So it kind of made sense for me that I would try and make the NHL, and if it doesn't work, then I'll try and do school to the fullest. Unfortunately, I took a puck in the face my second game of the OHL, and that kind of sidelined me from the hockey thing. But I then shifted gears earlier than I had anticipated, but it all worked out in the end. Like you said, you have a reason for everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're going to kind of wrap it up with this, and it's pretty loaded, I think. I want you to, for the kids and for parents, just kind of piece it together. Time management, pressure.
Yeah.
I want to succeed. I want to be a hockey player, but we need a backup plan. How do we get the kids to focus and manage distractions and manage their time? And I know that was a loaded one, but in your opinion, because we're looking at kids that have a lot of distractions, they don't really understand what's at the end of the line.
Yeah.
You know, most everyone thinks they're going to play in the NHL, but to make $1 outside of in hockey is a tough thing to do.
Yep.
To get a scholarship is a tough thing to do. So we need backup plans. But how do we manage our time and manage our thought pattern to have success in both?
So one of the big things that one of the books that I think you read it as well, and I've read it a few times, is like this Dale Carnegie book, Win Friends and Influence People. And one of the things he says in there that I take with me a lot is like, nobody will ever do anything that they don't want to do, right?
Right.
So if you can build in the kids, and if the kids can build in themselves that desire to want to have an extra plan, so to want to study at school, like, how can I do that, right? How can I want to do this? And that's all about like building that goal-oriented mindset and saying, you know, I want to have a backup plan because I don't want to have this, right? Mm-hmm. Like, look at this guy, right? He put all his eggs in one basket. It really didn't work out for him. Okay, I don't want that to be me. I want to have a parallel track. I want to have a plan. But if you don't want it, you're not going to do it, right? So I find that, you know, it's unfortunate in a certain way. Kids have a lot of pressure, right? Like you said, pressure of school, pressure of hockey, everything. And there is a certain element that, like, you know, kids are kids, and they need to have fun, and they need to live like a child, right? Like, you can't put too much pressure on them too early. And I think the biggest thing a parent can do for their kid is working on building the desire to want to be successful, or to want to have a parallel track, or to want to have different plans and goals and aspirations, rather than trying to impose that upon them, right? If you can build it with them, it pays so much more dividend than if you can just be harping on them and telling them what to do. So letting them live their own lives, letting them learn some lessons on their own, and then trying to, you know, build that desire to want to be successful would be the best thing you can do for that side of things, because there is so much pressure, and there's so much pressure on yourself that you don't need the external pressure. You need to just let them know that, like, you know, you can build that, you can want that desire. So I think that would be my kind of answer. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it's a great answer. And as you're saying it, I'm just thinking of my own life. You know, so I'm just going to add to that. I think I'm qualified a little bit because I teach a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of dads, a lot of moms, a lot of teachers and stuff. They talk and the kids don't see anything. Mm-hmm. So I think that one of the things that you can do, like, so my son, every single night, is as active as I am and as busy as we are with people, he sees me having good conversations. But I think a lot of people wouldn't realize that when I get home and I do relax, I do a little bit of TV, but every night my wife and I have these glasses on, and we have a book in front of us, and we're not reading, you know, mad comic books. We're reading good stuff that we always share. My son sees that. You know what? He gets a lot of like, as much as, like, when I go to the track, he wants to do it with me. Or a lot of kids that work out with me, they work out with me, and they feel good because they're getting some sort of approval from me too, a high five and stuff. When my son sees me writing or taking a course, I've taken nutrition courses, he always sees me working towards something. I think I could tell him all day, but with him watching what I do, he used to pick up a book and stuff like that. So I think it's an important part too.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, he wants to be like dad. So you've kind of created that desire within him just by doing it yourself, right? So
yeah, and a commonality with the two of you guys, the things you can do, right? You can work out together, you eat healthy together, you read books together, and of course you're gonna probably have a little bit more success, right?
yeah, for sure.
So Derek, it's our hour. It's our
Mhm.
hour is up, and the video actually will cut us off in less than a minute.
Yeah.
So I really really do appreciate this.
Mhm.
You're a great guy. You've worked hard, and I hope this resonated with people. And
Yeah.
I want to have you on again at some point if
Yeah.
you can do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was really great to be on. I mean, I hope that someone got something out of it, and I wish everyone the best. I mean, it's a long road, but everyone can do it, and everyone can have a good time doing it as well.
Absolutely, awesome. Well, I know you're going to be around soon. If you get a chance, pop in. And I know you're busy, so if you can't, don't worry about it. Touch base, but I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
Thank you very much. I'll touch base. See you, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.